Somewhere on a Scottish cliff, the tide pulls back and shows a cave mouth. Inside, salted human arms hang from hooks like cured beef. The family that lived here, 8 people. Not 1, not 10. Supposedly 984. They were one bloodline, a man, his wife, and the children they made together, who then made children with each other. For 25 years, nobody found them. Then a king came with 400 soldiers and dogs. What he did to them was almost worse. His name was Alexander Sawney Bean, and he started normal. Born near Edinburgh, the son of a ditch digger, he hated honest work, so he ran off with a woman named Black Agnes, and the two of them found a cave on the coast at Benane Head. The mouth flooded at high tide, and over a mile of dark tunnel ran into the rock behind it. You could walk right past it and never know a soul lived inside, but a cave like that needs feeding. So Sawney started robbing travelers on the lonely roads. Then he stopped leaving witnesses. He killed them, and to hide the bodies, the family ate them, year after year. The family grew the only way it could. The children had children with each other. That is inbreeding, relatives making babies with relatives. Picture a family tree that stops branching outward and just folds back into itself. When a family breeds only inside itself, the same genes stack up, and over the years that tends to bring sickness and deformity. The story leans hard on that. It wants you to see them as barely human. By the end, there were said to be 48 of them, all from one couple. They got organized. They pickled the leftover arms and legs and hung them like meat. Whatever they couldn't use, they threw into the sea, and the tide carried hands and feet back onto the beaches. Whole villages panicked. Travelers vanished. For years, the people of the coast blamed ghosts and bad luck, and innocent innkeepers were hanged for murders they never did because they were the last face a missing man had seen. One mistake ended it. The clan ambushed a man and his wife riding home from a fair. The women got to the wife first and cut her throat, but the husband fought, and he was still fighting when 30 fairgoers came up the road. The clan scattered. The man lived, and he talked. Word reached the king, and the king did not send a messenger. He came himself with 400 men and bloodhounds. The soldiers almost walked straight past the cave. Then the dogs caught the smell. What they found inside broke them: bodies, parts, barrels of limbs, and the punishment matched it. There was no trial, no judge, no jury, just a fire and a knife. The men had their hands, feet, and privates cut off and were left to bleed out. The women and children were made to watch, then burned alive. A civilized king did that. The story was so strong it later gave Wes Craven the idea for The Hills Have Eyes. And here the story has a problem. There is no record of it, none. Not a court paper, not a single body, not one line written while it supposedly happened. Scotland kept careful notes back then, even for small crimes. A king leading 400 men against a cannibal clan would have been the proudest tale of his reign, and he never mentioned it. The story only shows up in print in the 1700s, more than 100 years late in English books sold to scare people, and the name is the tell. Sawney was an insult the English used for a Scotsman, the way a cruel cartoon picks one ugly name and sticks it on a whole people. One historian put it plainly: the tale sounds like the plot for a box office topping horror film because it was made to sell books. The 984, no source ever said it. Somebody online sharpened the number so it would feel real. So the tragic fate was never the families, it was the countries. A whole people got painted as monsters, and we still buy the ticket. Sold for a penny. Picture a hanging day in Old England. A crowd packs the square. A man stands on the gallows with a rope around his neck. And working through that crowd is a peddler with a stack of cheap paper, shouting out the dead man's crimes before he is even dead. That paper is where Sawney Bean was born, not in a cave, on a printing press. For years his story had no home in any history book. It lived in things called broadsheets and chapbooks, cheap printed sheets that cost a penny or so, folded into little booklets and sold at fairs and at executions. They were the tabloids of their day. They were made to shock you, take your coin and move on. Truth was not the point. The sale was the point. Then the small stories got bundled into big books. The most famous bundle was called the Newgate Calendar, named after a London prison, and the first collection under that title appeared around 1773. A 5-volume edition followed soon after and became the standard one everybody copied. And copy they did. The various editions were heavily embellished and lifted straight from older books. One publisher's lie became the next publisher's fact. And here's how big these books got. The Newgate Calendar was said to be as common in the British home as the Bible itself. 2 books in the house. One was The Path to Heaven, and one was a parade of murderers sold to you at the gallows. Sawney had his own page in it. The old listing calls him an incredible monster who, with his wife, lived by murder and cannibalism in a cave. That is the whole pitch in one line: monster, wife, cave. It reads like the back of a horror DVD because it does the same job. There was even a trick to make all this feel respectable. Many of these crime stories tacked a little little sermon onto the end, a neat moral about sin and punishment, so a God-fearing family could buy them and still feel clean. Crime on every page, a prayer at the bottom. You got to enjoy the blood and still call it a lesson. That is a very old magic trick, and we still fall for it today. Now, how much did these sellers care about the truth? Almost not at all. Some of these sheets were so eager to sell that they printed the condemned man's final words before he had even spoken them. Think about that. The true confession was already typeset while the man was still breathing. If they would fake the last words of a real prisoner standing right in front of a crowd, imagine what they would do with a cave nobody could check. This is the part the story never tells you about itself. Long before anyone counted the victims, the people writing it down were not historians. They were salesmen. The whole point of the form was to amaze and horrify a paying crowd. A bigger number sold more pages, a darker cave sold more pages. More children, more barrels, more arms on hooks, more pages. The story did not grow because new facts came in. It grew because that is what a good product does. It gets shinier every year. And Sawney was not even the first of his kind in print. A popular history writer named Nathaniel Crouch told an almost identical Scottish cannibal tale back in 1696, set in the year 1459, well before Sawney's legend took off. Same shape, same horror, different name. It is like watching the same scary movie get remade over and over, just with a fresh face on the poster. So when the body of this story says somebody sharpened the numbers to make them feel real, that was not a one-time trick. It was the whole business model. 200 years of peddlers and printers, each one adding a little salt to the meat, each one needing your penny. The cave never fed anyone. The story did. It fed the people selling it. A name made to hurt. Now look at the name again, Sawney. It sounds almost soft, almost silly, but to English ears in the 1700s, it was a weapon. Sawney was a common, sneering nickname the English slapped on any Scotsman, roughly the way Paddy got thrown at the Irish. It was not really a name, it was a put-down. It showed up in cartoons and pamphlets as a kind of slur, a shorthand for a backward, stupid Scot. So when the villain of the bloodiest story in the book is literally named the Scotsman, that is not an accident. That is the joke. The monster is not just a man who eats people. The monster is Scotland itself. There is a famous picture that shows you exactly how the English saw their northern neighbor. In 1745, a London artist made a print called Sawney in the Bog House, showing a tartan-clad Scot who is too dim to even use a toilet the right way. The message was simple. These people are filthy, these people are animals, these people cannot be trusted to run their own bodies, let alone their own country. Now put the timing together. The Sawney Bean story rises into print just after 1707, the year England and Scotland were joined into one kingdom, and right as anti-Jacobite anger was boiling over. The Jacobites were the people fighting to put a Scottish king back on the throne and keep Scotland its own. London needed those people to look like savages, not patriots. And what makes a people look more savage than a family that breeds in a cave and eats travelers off the road? The historian Louise Yeoman lays it out plainly. The tale works as a dig at the Scots, a people so barbarous they could grow a monster like Sawney, paint a whole nation as cave-dwelling cannibals, and crushing them stops looking cruel. It starts looking like cleaning up. This was a known trick, not a one-off. Calling your enemy a cannibal is one of the oldest ways to turn a person into a thing, and stories of flesh-eating Scots kept popping up in English propaganda for exactly that reason. Once a man is a monster, you do not owe him mercy. You do not owe him a trial. You can do to him the exact thing the story does to Sawney, cut him apart with no judge and no jury, and feel righteous doing it. The horror in the cave gives you permission for the horror on the beach. And notice who Sawney runs off with. His partner, Black Agnes, comes preloaded with her own slur. She is whispered to be a witch. Cannibal plus witch. Every fear the age had, packed into one couple. And both of them Scottish. The story is not lazy. It is doing a job. Then there's the small matter of the hero. In the tale, the King of Scotland himself rides in with 400 men and saves the day. But the real king was a careful man who loved good press. If he had truly wiped out a clan of cannibals, he would have shouted it from every tower, and yet not one royal record mentions it. A king does not win the fight of his life and then forget to write it down, unless the fight never happened. Now, honesty matters even when you are tearing a story down. The propaganda idea is strong, but it is not airtight. One researcher pushes back hard. If these books were really built to smear the Scots, why are they just as stuffed with English villains? A book full of English monsters makes a poor anti-Scottish weapon. It is a fair hit. Maybe Sawney was less a planned attack, and more a bogeyman that drifted into the right hands at the right time. A scary story that simply became useful. Either way, the result is the same. A nation got a cannibal stapled to its name, and the stain stuck for 300 years. The hunger that was real. So is it all smoke? Every word a lie? Not quite. And this is where the story turns genuinely sad, instead of just gory. Because real Scots did eat people. Not for fun. Not in some cursed bloodline. for the oldest reason there is: they were starving. Strip away Sawney's cartoon evil, and you find an older, truer story underneath. His name is Christy Cleek. Folklore says his real name was Andrew Christie, a butcher from the town of Perth, who lived through a brutal famine in the middle of the 1300s. His story does not need a propaganda machine to be horrifying, because hunger wrote it. Here is how it goes. During the famine, Christie joined a band of desperate people scavenging in the Grampian Hills. When one of them died, the butcher used his trade on the body and fed the rest. They lived, and then they could not stop. The group developed a taste for it and began dragging travelers off their horses with a hook, a cleek, to kill and eat them. That hook is where his name comes from. Now line the two up: a clan in a cave, a gang in the hills. Both rob the road, both eat the traveler. Both eat the horse. Historians have long suspected the two tales share one root, that Sawney is really Christy Cleek dressed up, moved south, and sold to a new crowd. The same nightmare retold for whoever is buying. But here's what makes Christie different from Sawney. He might be partly real. He shows up in writing far earlier than Sawney ever did. A Scottish chronicler named Andrew of Winton wrote of a Chuston Cleek around 1420, who trapped women and children and, in the old words, ate them all that he get might. An English chronicler called Holinshed told his own version in 1577. These are not penny horror sheets sold at a hanging. These are old chronicles, written far closer to the event by people trying to record their country's history. And there is something colder still. Court records from that era note a husband and wife in Perth who were executed for cannibalism. Around the very time Christie was supposed to be hunting the hills. Real people, real court, real punishment. Maybe not the legend exactly, but a true seed the legend could grow from. Because the thing the legends use as flavor was, in real life, the whole tragedy. Britain in the Middle Ages suffered close to 100 famines, and the Great Famine of the early 1300s killed people across Europe and drove some, in documented cases, to eat the dead. Old Scottish writers like Hector Boas recorded a wave of disaster around 1,340 floods, dying cattle, plagues of mice and rats. The kind of years where a parent watches a child waste away. Put a butcher in that, and you do not need a monster. You need a bad season in a bad century. That is the real horror buried under Sawney. Not a freak family who loved the taste of man. Ordinary people broken by a hunger so total that the unthinkable became the only thing left. And the kicker: in the old tale, Christy Cleek is never punished at all. He is said to have slipped away, changed his name, and lived out his days a wealthy man. No bonfire, no knife, no 400 soldiers. The cannibal, who might have been real, walks free. The cannibal, who was probably invented, gets the screaming, fiery ending. That alone tells you which story was built for justice and which was built for box office. The monster with a gift shop. 200 years passed, and the cave that never fed a soul finally started making money. In 1977, a young filmmaker named Wes Craven needed an idea. He found Sawney Bean while reading in a library, and the legend lit something up in him. The idea that so-called civilized people could turn savage. He moved the cave to the American desert, swapped the tartan for sunburn, and made the hills have eyes. The film cost almost nothing and pulled in around $25 million. A glossy remake came in 2006 and made even more, over $70 million, and the sequels kept coming. A Scottish slur from a penny pamphlet had become a Hollywood franchise. Sawney went from selling chapbooks to selling tickets, popcorn, and a third sequel. The model never changed, only the price of admission did. Then the Homeland cashed in too. Today there is a whole exhibit built around Sawney Bean at the Edinburgh Dungeon, a paid attraction where visitors walk through his story for a thrill. Down on the coast, the supposed cave at Benane Head between Lendlefoot and Ballantrae still draws the curious who want to stand where it happened. He has even been turned into low-budget horror films of his own, like 2012's Sawney, Flesh of Man. The country that got smeared by the story learned the oldest lesson in the book: if they are going to call you a monster, you might as well charge admission to the cave. And the number? Watch the number move. The old book said the clan murdered more than 1,000 people over 25 years. No source from the time ever wrote that down, because there is no source from the time. The figure is just a guess that grew. And somewhere on the modern internet, someone filed that rough over 1,000 down into a sharp specific 984, because 984 sounds counted. It sounds like a record. A round number feels made up, an odd one feels true. That single number is the whole legend in miniature, a hard fact built out of nothing, polished until it shines. So here is where we land. The 48 bodies, the barrels of arms, the king and his 400 men, none of it left a single bone, a single court paper, a single name on a list of the missing. Scotland kept careful records, and a royal slaughter of a cannibal clan would have been the story of the age, yet the page is blank. The silence is the loudest evidence we have. What was real was hunger. What was real was a country bled dry by war and failed harvests, where a butcher in Perth did something unthinkable just to live. What was real was a neighbor to the south who took that pain, scrubbed off the sorrow, painted on some fangs, and sold it back to the world as fun. The tragic fate was never the family's. There may have been no family. The tragic fate belonged to a whole people who got handed a monster's mask and told to wear it for 300 years. And the cruelest part is the part we play. The peddlers are long dead. The propaganda war is long over. Nobody is forcing this story on us now. We seek it out, we click it, we buy the dungeon ticket and the horror film and the sharpened number, and every time we do, we keep the lie alive for one more night. The cave is empty, it always was. We just can't stop walking in.